Welcome to the Golden Seams podcast. I'm Gabe, and along with my co-host Michae, we're thrilled to have you join us on this transformative journey of self-discovery and personal growth. Our podcast is all about helping you uncover your authentic self, find your true calling, and create prosperity in alignment with your deepest values and aspirations.
We're discovering the theme of boundaries, a crucial aspect of living authentically and pursuing your true path. We're exploring Melissa Urban's insightful book, The Book of Boundaries, invaluable guidance on setting clear, compassionate limits in all areas of life, helping countless individuals reclaim their time, energy, and well-being.
Now, let's talk about boundaries.
Chapter 5, Relationships We Mostly Choose, Setting Boundaries with Friends and Neighbors. Gabe and I are going to be talking about what separates friends and neighbors. And although there can be an overlap, Melissa says there's an element of mutual choice in these relationships. We're also going to be talking about friends or frenemies, emotional dumping versus venting, emotional vampires and the different types of emotional vampires, how to identify an emotional vampire in your life, how to set up your mind to create the boundary with a friend or a neighbor, Melissa's words for creating the boundary and getting them to take responsibility so that you can get your life back. We'll be discussing main reasons people want to create boundaries with friends and why Melissa says breaking up is doable if you need to break up with a friend, but also why friendships are difficult to end, how to know when enough is enough, and 2 ways to break up with a friend and how to do it. Melissa's prep tips, dealing with sadness and Melissa's test to be sure that you did the right thing, setting boundaries with neighbors, tips for setting boundaries with neighbors, action steps, being proactive versus reactive, Melissa's scripts, singling out some very beneficial lines. We're also going to be talking about blocking people and social media in relation to boundaries and context of others' situations, how to handle backhanded compliments, and good limits that make good friendships. In this chapter, Melissa covers boundary scenarios that fall into the 2 categories of friends and neighbors. She's grouped these together because she says there can be overlap between these categories. There's an element of mutual choice in the relationships you have with friends and neighbors, as you have some control over how they appear in your life. And these relationships can blur if you move in with your bestie or make friends with your new neighbors.
Melissa says we'll be talking specifically about friends who take advantage of your time, energy, effort, and money. They take without giving back, make their friendship conditional, use you when they need you, or are simply incapable of being thoughtful, empathetic, or giving. This can be one of your biggest sources of energy drain, and learning how to set boundaries here will be life-changing. Neighbors. The last thing you want is to be stuck in a disagreement or drama with the people who live right next door and might be there for the next 10 years. There's a reason people fence their properties, and building your own healthy fences in the form of boundaries can create structure and distance necessary to make your relationship healthy and happy.
Gabe, did you know that nearly 1 in 5 Americans, or about 19%, have moved due to poor relationships with their neighbors?
I did not know that. That's a big number.
A higher percentage than I bet any of us have ever thought about. Issues like rudeness, noise, and nosiness as reasons for relocation. This trend is more pronounced among younger generations, with 28% of millennials and 24% of Gen Zers choosing to move because of problematic neighbors. Additionally, 11% of Americans have moved specifically because they didn't like their neighbors, while another 27% have considered it. That's from Perplexity AI.
Isn't that crazy to imagine looking down your neighborhood street or around wherever you're living and putting like 20% highlight? That's a lot of movement.
Definitely. Melissa introduces the idea of friends or frenemies, and she says, we've all had that one friend who complains about the same thing over and over but never seems to do anything about it. She says this isn't venting. A healthy exchange in which someone sticks to one subject, takes responsibility for their feelings and actions, is open to feedback about how to move forward, and express gratitude for your listening and support. Instead, she says, this is emotional dumping. when your conversation partner repeatedly dumps all of their emotional baggage in your lap, portrays themselves as the victim, takes no advice or follow-up action, and expects you to hold their problems without any expression of gratitude or reciprocity. She says in her research, the number one reason that people are desperate to set a boundary with a friend is to halt this kind of emotional dumping. She says emotional dumping is overwhelming, exhausting, and frustrating because your conversation partner isn't taking accountability for their circumstances. Sorry, Gabe.
I think we all have done this at some point or another.
Just kidding. She says, emotional vampires are people who consciously or unconsciously steal your time, energy, and attention with their toxic behaviors. Sorry, Gabe. As if drawing the life force out of you will somehow fill them up. It never does. FYI, Gabe.
Glad to know.
These people leave you feeling depleted, depressed, overwhelmed, frustrated, or insecure with every interaction, as if you've been put through an emotional ringer.
Melissa goes on to describe the most common types of emotional vampires. The narcissist needs to feel superior, doesn't care about your feelings, and will keep you around as long as they can, continue to emotionally manipulate you. The soap opera star turns everything into a production, loves to gossip and create drama, and wants everyone else to get caught up in their performance. The controller always needs to get their way, offers unsolicited advice, and gets mad when you don't take it, constantly criticizing you in an effort to be helpful. And the victim dumps all of their emotions and problems on you, refuses to take any accountability, won't implement your advice or try to change their own circumstances. Here's how to identify an emotional vampire in your life. You avoid their texts or calls. You dread social meetups that include them. You never know where you stand with them. You change your behavior specifically for them. You make excuses or apologize for them often. You don't feel good during or after your encounters with them. Other people point out that your friendship is unhealthy.
The key thing to look at here is she really hits the nail on the head when she says no matter how much you give them, it will never be enough. That is the critical point because they'll just continue to take. It doesn't necessarily mean they know they're doing that. It's the position that it leaves you in, which is what matters so significantly.
Feels like being drowned to let somebody else swim if you get caught up too much in one of these dynamics.
Yes. She says, when the friendship that you've had has gone way past the line of being mutually supportive into all take and no give territory, where you feel like you're avoiding calls and texts, putting off plans to spend time together, and feeling emotionally drained at just the thought of interacting, if you have any person or any relationship like that in your life, this is where Melissa's referring to the boundaries that need to be set with an emotional vampire. She says, you want your friend to receive the support they need, and if you continue to allow them to dump on you, there's little impetus for them to seek more effective help elsewhere. Remind yourself, because you'll probably be feeling guilty, that your ongoing participation in this toxic pattern is standing in the way of not only your friendship but your friend's growth. You continue to allow them to dump their emotional baggage on you, they'll never learn how to process it in a healthy way. This is the mental prep work of where you've got to start to create and design a platform in your head where you're setting it up for what is the best thing for the friendship. Am I really helping this person if I continue to allow them to just stay in the spin? When I have a client, the first thing that I want to ensure is when I'm working with them that they're going to take responsibility, because I can't take responsibility for what we're going to do in regard to their progress. I'm all in, but they have to be all in as well. It's the same thing. I feel very fortunate because I've had wonderful clients who work very hard and they have great changes, great success. However, I do know of other people who do a lot of different types of therapy, and it's very frustrating for them because the client does not move forward. So having a friend treating you as their quote therapist, that's when it's time to start to refer them to a therapist. And Melissa says this is a form of outsourcing. Initially, you want to set up your mind to what's the best thing to do for my friend because I care about them. Sounds like they need to talk to someone in a more professional way with professional experience to get out of this spin. But I am not that person. And even if you are a therapist, You can't be a therapist to your friends, a traditional therapist usually. That's outside of where you want to be. Hopefully that starts to set a platform of the mental setup that you want to have. Melissa goes on to say, I advise you to begin by setting the tone at your very next interaction and start with, it seems like you continue to have the same issue even though we've talked about it a dozen times. Before we get into it again, tell me what you've done since our last call to change things on your end. This places the responsibility firmly in your friend's lap where it belongs. If they haven't done anything, you can end this part of the conversation right there and say something like, last time we talked, we agreed you could try to do these 3 things. Until that happens, it's unlikely things will change. Let's talk about this again once you've taken some action. My version of this would probably be something along the lines of, how did that go with XYZ that I told you and suggested, or whatever. A softer pitch in there, asking questions, and I would be genuinely curious. And if they said, oh, I didn't do any of it, my next thing, I would still be curious. I would want to know, why didn't you? Because I would want to know that their circumstances, if it's their thinking, you already know the pattern. You have that to say, oh, you know what? We just keep talking about this. I think we got to shift gears here. I think we got to go in a different direction, and I am probably not the right person to help you. I have let clients go, and those are the exact words I've said.
Nice.
I'm thrilled to announce that we're offering exclusive content on our Patreon, The Golden Seams. I want to take a moment to further explain what we are doing to support and benefit you on your path. Our Golden Alchemist level members all receive a specially crafted 15 to 20 minute deep meditation focused on creating and maintaining clear, kind boundaries, our theme right now. This meditation, when practiced daily for 21 to 30 days, can help you naturally integrate healthy boundaries in your relationships with yourself and energetically, fully helping you incorporate positive boundaries into your life, paving the way for authentic living and personal growth.
This membership level also includes a powerful 1-hour Boundaries Subliminal audio, which serves as the backdrop for the deep meditation. These audios are designed to help release difficulties in creating clear, kind boundaries while simultaneously assisting you in establishing and maintaining them. They incorporate Solfeggio frequencies and binaural beats for maximum effectiveness. Michae, guided by her higher senses, creates these transformative tools previously reserved for her private clients. To amplify your boundary setting journey, we're including a custom designed mandala by a talented artist from India, who we find to be intuitively guided, synchronized with our themes. This visual tool, when infused with your own energy and displayed in your workspace or on your vision or mood board, can help manifest clear, kind boundaries in your life. The mandala serves as a powerful manifestation tool, helping you bring your desires and intentions into reality. Both the audios and the mandala are infused with Reiki energy by Michae, a Reiki master, to support you even further.
The combination of deep meditation, subliminal audio, and mandala work creates a powerful synergy. Deep meditation allows for profound relaxation and receptivity to positive suggestions working with your subconscious, so please do not listen whilst driving or operating machinery. The deep meditation may be listened to regularly at night with highly effective results, even as you doze off to sleep. Our subliminal audio works with your subconscious mind to reinforce boundary-setting behaviors and may be listened to safely anytime. Mandalas, with their intricate patterns, serve as focal points for meditation and self-reflection, aiding in stress reduction and emotional healing, and they're great to color while listening to your audios. One of the key things when I'm working with somebody, you can translate this over to friends, is I want to know who's their support group. You can ask something, in my opinion, along the lines of, it sounds like you need some additional support with that, or do you have additional support with this besides just talking to me because I'm very concerned about you? And if they don't, start suggesting, I really think you should probably find a talk therapist. Do it for their well-being. Do it for the genuine concern of them. Let them know that you care about them, but it actually worries you a great deal. They're not getting this help and you've got a full plate already. Right. Or just say it's out of my lane. It's not in my lane.
And I think with friends, sometimes it's hard after you're stuck in that dynamic for too long and they've become comfortable with the one-sided nature of the conversations, there's not a lot of value to the contributions you might even bring. And maybe their experience with a more neutral third party or somebody that they're having to pay for the time, they'll be more willing to listen or able to hear.
It's very true. I agree with that completely. Melissa goes on to say that if they start playing the victim, as if nothing they do could affect any change, then it's time for the tough love. She says, I don't believe you have no power here. We've talked about this extensively, and you haven't tried anything we've discussed. At this point, you have two choices. You can either take responsibility for doing your part to change the dynamic or accept things the way they are and decide to live with it. You came to me because I'm action-oriented, but I can't do it for you. So what do you think the right solution is? And she says again, you're placing the ball in your friend's court, asking them to assume responsibility for next steps. You can just approach it in a very curious way. I really appreciate the idea where she's having you put the onus back on the individual who's coming to you and not willing to take steps forward.
Right.
After a certain point, you have to hand this person off.
It's a tricky line at first to distinguish where somebody is in a genuine struggle, needing help. And once that line is crossed and they're more into the territory of becoming enmeshed with like a victim mentality and taking that on as a reality. For me, it's been a little bit of a tightrope because I love my friends and I care about my friends. And if I can, I want to support them. But I've also recognized when this pattern starts becoming too demanding. And this is something new to me too. I haven't been able to practice this personally. I've been in a lot of situations where I haven't been a great help despite wanting to and trying my best. I am not trained for every situation, and life can throw some pretty intense curveballs.
When I do it with my clients, I look at it like this. I genuinely want them to succeed, whatever that is. It does not matter to me what it is, what they're coming to me for. But if it's not in my lane, if I don't feel that I can give them anything that will benefit them further, even suggesting things, working out details, if they're not able to do what I'm asking them to do, first thing I want to know is why. Is there another underlying piece there you haven't said? The truth is that I cover all of that with them. I would have covered this with a friend just out of curiosity if this was the situation. Genuine curiosity and concern. Once I know it's not in my wheelhouse, I do want them to get help. So when you go in with that spirit and you go in with that tone and you say to them, next time we talk, I want to know, what have you done? Because I need to know that you're okay.
Right.
If they don't do anything else, or it just gets worse, step back, and when they talk to you next, you just say, oh gosh, you didn't do that? Listen, I know that I told you to do that, and it was for my genuine concern for you, and you're good. I need to step back.
That's a tough step to take, but I think it's the necessary one. I've ran into the situation where I try recommending talk therapy and conversations that were too much for me. And I have some friends who are not willing to open or have had issues in the past with trust, and that's a difficult path for them.
Mm-hmm.
But I've allowed that also to encroach on my own time and space and energy. And then in that depletion cycle, I become less and less available, not only for them, but for myself. And I have less to give to everybody, not just in this one isolated situation or conversation or relationship. I do want to acknowledge that it can be tricky at first, if you haven't done talk therapy, to find somebody who works well with your thinking and your expression. But when you do find somebody, it is unbelievably helpful to have a neutral third party reflect back who is outside of the situation. And it is a great complement to other things like podcasts or subliminal audios you could use.
Another piece that's beneficial in getting additional support, even if it's a group, they go to a group gathering or something like that, is they're going to get solutions. Solutions that are not available and additional support.
Right.
Hopefully get their situation resolved in a way that's really positive. Melissa goes on to say, if they continue to push back, get angry or defensive, or otherwise refuse to respect the boundaries you're trying to set, it's time to get honest. She says, say something like, I've tried so hard to help you, but at this point I can't do anything else, and continuing to talk about the same thing over and over is taking a toll on my mental health and on our friendship. Maybe it's time to talk to a therapist, just like we've been saying here, about this. Someone who has experience with these kinds of situations and can offer a new perspective. Whatever you decide to do, I need to take a break from this topic of conversation, and if you can't or won't do that, I'm going to take a break from the friendship itself. She says, then hold your boundary. That might mean continuing to talk about other things, but saying, no, I'm not talking about X, Y, or Z anymore if they try to drag you back into it. I think that's contextual.
Yeah.
It's a very red boundary to me, the way that's set up.
I am imagining a pretty full bucket, and this conversation might be the last drop in a full bucket, so maybe there have been months or years worth of other boundaries. So this is not acknowledged, but definitely a red or fuchsia boundary.
Yes. She even goes on to say, if you're wondering whether or not this friendship stands any chance of survival, how they ultimately respond to your boundary will tell you everything you need to know. But I want to say, if a person is so wounded that they cannot respond to this well, I would say, remember, it's not about you.
Yeah.
Even more so, they should get additional help.
Right. It should never switch from the care and concern for the
Yes.
well-being of the other. I think that that's one of the most important aspects of setting boundaries. It should be mutually beneficial, even if it is a break or some space for them to get the help that they need. Coming from that place of love, I think, changes the tone and energy of what we communicate.
I firmly believe that getting help with a specialist or someone who has additional expertise that can be beneficial for whatever the need is.
Melissa goes on to describe other reasons, aside from emotional dumping, that you might want to set a boundary with a friend. Friends who ghost, popping in only when they need something from you. Friends who gossip or create drama amongst your friend group. Friends who try to shove their beliefs or values onto you. Friends with unreasonable expectations around how you show up for them. Friends who don't respect your time, showing up late, bailing last minute. Friends who don't support your goals. Friends who don't act like friends, making fun of you, sharing private information, or behaving competitively.
When I look at that list, I had people in my life, because I don't think that that list is just for friends. It's a great list. It's a good composite. I had friends who popped into my head, but also circumstances. One additional thing that I thought about was friends who don't support your goals. Those people are usually secretive and covert, in my experience. The other thing is that if I have a friend who doesn't act like a friend, where Melissa states they make fun of you, they share private information, or they compete with me, I drop these people so fast. Honest to God, I drop those people. The minute I even get a sniff of that nonsense, I am not available. I am the friend who ghosts people in those situations because I don't have time for that. I have made up my mind about that. It's not worth my time.
I agree with that. It's a basic expectation of respect. It's not worth the energy investment to cultivate and nurture a relationship with somebody who isn't willing to do the bare minimum for that to thrive.
Also, in my experience, if you try talking with people like that, they lie and say, no, I don't feel that way. I'm not competing with you. Oh my gosh. And they'll even try to flip it on you. Oh, you think so much of yourself. By the time I actually reached a point where I would talk to somebody about it, because I was not great at boundaries, as I have stated over and over and over again, actually open my mouth and say something. I'd had so many people approach me about that person. I felt I had no choice but to say something. That's when I learned, oh, it's not worth it. The other one that I was going to mention was,
for our full-length discussion, subscribe to our Patreon, The Golden Seams. You'll get exclusive access to extended conversations, bonus content, and more. Don't miss out. Join our community and dive deeper into the topics you love. Support us on Patreon and unlock the complete podcast experience.
We'd like to thank all of our listeners, subscribers, followers, and especially our wonderful Patreon members for your support, sharing this community and this path, quoting us, tagging us, whatever kind acts you do with your friends, family, colleagues, and those who will just get it. Your gentle but powerful acts of support, no matter how small, tell us and the world this resonates. So we thank you wholly and fully from our hearts for being the catalyst wherever you are, because it only takes one step forward to begin to step into your magnificence.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep growing, and keep shining your authentic light. This is Gabe and Michae signing off from the Golden Seams. May your path be golden, and may you find the strength to mend and beautify the broken parts of your life, just like the art of kintsugi. Take care, and we'll see you in our next episode.